Your doctor has a prescription pad for your kidneys. They do not have a snack list. I want to tell you why, because once you understand it, everything else today will make sense. A follow-up visit gets you 8, maybe 10 minutes. Enough time to check a lab value and adjust a dose. Not enough time to sit down and explain what you should be eating at 3 in the afternoon when the kitchen starts calling. So that conversation gets cut, every time. It's not because it doesn't matter, it's because nobody built the appointment around it. My name is Dr. Clark, and the most common thing I hear from patients managing kidney disease in my 20 years of practice is not a question about medication. It's a quieter question, usually asked almost apologetically, often at the very end of the appointment when their hand is already on the door. Am I even allowed to snack anymore? The honest answer is yes, not just allowed. For most of you, the right snack, chosen and timed correctly, can genuinely reduce the moment-to-moment strain on the filters doing this work inside you right now, this very second, whether you're thinking about them or not. Today, I'm giving you 6 of them, why each one earns its place at the level of the actual tiny structures inside your kidneys. And the one thing about when you eat them that almost nobody explains, in any video or any pamphlet your doctor's office has ever handed you. Over the years, I've sat with hundreds of patients over 60 holding a lab report right here in the United States, terrified of their own refrigerator. Good, careful people who did nothing wrong and still ended up feeling like every food in their kitchen had become a suspect. My job stopped being just prescribing a long time ago. It became translating, taking what the research actually says, all the studies and guidelines that never quite make it into a 12-minute appointment, and turning it into something you can hold in your hand at 3 p.m. when the afternoon gets long. That's what today is. Now, let me tell you about Margaret. She's 68, retired school teacher, lives outside Scottsdale, Arizona. But before we talk about Margaret, let me make an announcement. After multiple requests, I have put together everything I know about eating for kidney health, all of it, into one place. It's called the Complete Kidney Guide for Seniors, and it's on my website, seniormeal.lifestyle. That guide goes a lot deeper. Full food lists by stage, label reading cheat sheets, what works. Just wanted you to know it's there. Back to Margaret. When she came to see me, she'd been told she had stage 3A kidney disease about a year earlier. And in that year, she'd done something I see constantly. She'd simply stopped snacking altogether. No crackers, no fruit, nothing between meals, because every article she'd read online told her something different. One site said avoid potassium, another said avoid protein. A third said avoid sugar entirely, and she decided the only genuinely safe answer was to eat absolutely nothing between her 3 meals. Within a few months, she'd lost 11 pounds she didn't have to spare. Her afternoons had become something she described as just gritting my teeth until dinner. And she told me, "Dr. Clark, I'm hungry all day, and I still don't know if I'm helping myself or hurting myself." That sentence is exactly why I made this video. We didn't overhaul her whole diet. We built her 2 smart, specific snacks a day, timed a certain way, which I'll show you in a few minutes, and over the following months, her weight came back, her energy came back, and her labs held steady. Not perfect, steady. That's the honest goal. Now here's a belief I need to correct before we go any further, because it's the exact belief that put Margaret in that position, and I'd bet it's sitting somewhere in the back of your mind too. Somewhere along the way, people started believing that the fewer times you eat in a day, the easier you're making it on your kidneys. That snacking itself is the enemy. That a resting kidney is a happy kidney, so silence between meals must be the safest thing you can do. That is not quite right. And the real physiology is more useful to you than that. Here's what's actually been studied and understood in nephrology for decades. When you eat, and especially when you eat protein, your kidneys don't just passively filter along at the same steady pace. Blood flow to the filtering units increases, and the filtration rate itself rises above its resting level for a period of time. This is called your renal functional reserve, and it was first described by researchers studying kidney donors and healthy volunteers given a protein-rich meal, going back to work done in the 1980s. It's not a fringe idea, it's foundational nephrology. In a healthy kidney, this reserve is exactly that, a reserve, called on briefly and put back. In a kidney that's already lost filtering capacity, that same rise in workload lands on far fewer working nephrons, and doing it over and over, meal after meal, year after year, is one of the mechanisms researchers believe contributes to ongoing decline. So it was never really about how often you eat. It's about how much filtering demand you ask for in any single sitting, and how well spaced and well chosen that demand is. Think of it like a toll booth on a highway. A steady trickle of cars moving through all day causes no backup at all. Send every single car through in one enormous rush hour, and even a toll booth that works perfectly the rest of the day gets overwhelmed. Your kidneys are that toll booth. A person who eats 3 enormous meals and nothing else may actually be asking more of their kidneys at each sitting than a person who eats smaller, smarter, well-timed snacks spread across the day. Silence isn't automatically safer. The composition and the spacing is what actually matters. I'll be honest with you about something, because I think the field owes you that honesty. For years, the standard advice in kidney nutrition leaned almost entirely on one number: total protein grams per day, added up at the end. It didn't ask when those grams showed up, or in what size portions. That advice wasn't wrong exactly, but it was incomplete. And the research on renal functional reserve and meal timing has only really come into sharper focus in nephrology over the past couple of decades. I mention that because it's a small example of something I want you to trust about me. When the science gets more refined, I update what I tell you. That reframes everything we're about to go through. So here's the one idea I want sitting in your mind for the rest of this video. The thing every single snack today is chosen around. Every food you eat asks something of your kidneys. Some ask for a small, brief favor, and some ask for a much bigger one. Picture your kidneys as a small crew running a warehouse with a fixed number of workers. Every shipment that comes in, potassium to sort, phosphorus to sort, protein waste to package up and send out, takes workers off other tasks to handle it. A shipment that's small and predictable gets handled without anyone noticing. A shipment that's large or unpredictable pulls every worker off everything else, and the backlog from that one rush shows up hours later. The 6 snacks I'm giving you today were chosen because each one delivers something genuinely useful to that warehouse: an antioxidant, a clean source of protein, fiber, hydration, while sending in the smallest possible shipment in return. Low potassium load, low phosphorus load, low sodium. Protein your body can use almost completely instead of protein that leaves behind a pile of waste to clear. Keep that one idea in your head. Real benefit, small shipment, and every choice from here forward will make sense on its own, including the 2 we haven't even gotten to yet. The first snack is one almost nobody in this space talks about, and it surprises people every time. Fresh blueberries. Not grapes, not bananas, blueberries specifically, and the reason is in the skin. Blueberries are packed with anthocyanins, the deep blue-purple pigment compounds that also show up in things like red cabbage and purple grapes. Anthocyanins are potent antioxidants, and inside a kidney that's already under stress, they help calm the oxidative damage that slowly scars the delicate filtering structures over the years. That matters because chronic kidney disease isn't just plumbing wearing out, it's an ongoing, low-grade inflammatory process. And anything that quiets that fire is doing real work for you. Here's the part that makes blueberries genuinely useful, rather than just healthy in the abstract. A full cup of fresh blueberries contains only around 114 milligrams of potassium. Compare that to a single banana at over 400. For someone managing stage 3 or stage 4 kidney disease, watching that daily potassium budget, that's an enormous difference for something that tastes like dessert. There's a second reason blueberries earn their place here that most kidney nutrition sheets never mention. Anthocyanins have also been studied for a mild, gentle effect on blood vessel flexibility, helping the lining of small blood vessels relax and respond normally, rather than staying stiff and constricted. Since the vessels feeding your kidneys are some of the smallest and most delicate in your entire body, Anything that supports healthy blood flow into that network is doing quiet, unglamorous work in the background every single day, whether you notice it or not. Here's what almost nobody tells you about preparing them. Buy them fresh, never dried. Dried blueberries concentrate both the sugar and the potassium into a fraction of the volume, the same problem raisins create with grapes. And skip the blueberry smoothie. The moment you blend a cup of blueberries into a liquid, you're asking your body to absorb all of that potassium in one fast wave, instead of the slow, steady release you get from chewing whole fruit with its fiber intact. Frozen blueberries, by the way, are a perfectly good substitute when fresh aren't in season. Freezing doesn't strip out the anthocyanins the way drying does. Rinse a half cup, eat them straight 3 or 4 times a week, and pair them with a small handful of unsalted popcorn or a few egg whites for a little protein. Which brings me to snack number 2. I know how this sounds, a movie theater snack showing up in a kidney video. But hear me out, because air-popped, unsalted popcorn is one of the few genuinely satisfying, crunchy, high-volume snacks that asks almost nothing of your kidneys. Popcorn is a whole grain, and the fiber in a whole grain does something specific and useful here. It slows the rate at which sugars and other nutrients hit your bloodstream, which means less of a sudden spike for your body to manage all at once. Plain, air-popped popcorn is also naturally low in sodium, low in phosphorus, and modest in potassium. A typical serving comes in well under 100 milligrams. For someone who misses the simple pleasure of eating something crunchy by the handful without doing math in their head first, this is that food. There's another reason volume matters here that has nothing to do with minerals at all. Part of what makes snacking feel dangerous to people managing kidney disease is the psychological piece, the sense that you're constantly restricting, constantly saying no to yourself. 3 or 4 cups of popcorn is a genuinely large amount of food to hold in your hands. It takes time to eat. It satisfies the part of your brain that wants to chew and crunch and feel full, which matters just as much for sticking with a kidney-conscious way of eating long-term as any single nutrient does. The mistake almost everyone makes is buying microwave popcorn instead of air popping it themselves. Most microwave popcorn bags are lined with sodium and phosphate-based flavoring salts that can turn an innocent snack into a genuine sodium load. Read the label and you'll often find several hundred milligrams of sodium per serving, sometimes more. An air popper, or even popping kernels in a covered pot with a teaspoon of oil, costs you almost nothing and gives you total control. Season it with a little garlic powder, a pinch of smoked paprika, or a light drizzle of olive oil, never the salt shaker. 3 to 4 cups makes a genuinely filling snack, and it costs your kidneys almost nothing to process. The third snack solves a real problem I watch people struggle with constantly. How do you snack on something with protein without overloading your kidneys with the waste that protein leaves behind? Hard-boiled egg whites. Here's the mechanism. When your body breaks down protein, it produces urea, which shows up on your labs as blood urea nitrogen, or BUN. Every protein source is not equal in how much of that waste it leaves behind relative to how much of it your body actually uses. Egg white protein has one of the highest biological values of any protein source available. Your body uses nearly all of it, which means less leftover waste for an already strained kidney to clear. And because nearly all the phosphorus in an egg lives in the yolk, egg whites alone carry almost none of it, which matters enormously if you're managing stage 3 or 4 disease and phosphorus is already a daily concern. This matters more than it sounds like it should, especially for those of you over 60. Every year past 60, most people naturally lose a small amount of muscle mass through a process called sarcopenia. And here's the twist that catches even some physicians off guard. Losing muscle can actually make your creatinine reading look worse, because creatinine itself is a byproduct of muscle turnover in the first place. A frail body that's more likely to fall is a far more dangerous outcome than a lab number alone can capture. So the goal was never to eliminate protein. It was to find the protein source that gives you the muscle-preserving benefit while leaving behind the least amount of waste. And that's exactly the trade egg whites offer. Here's the preparation trick that turns this from a bland diet food into an actual snack worth reaching for. Hard-boil a batch of eggs at the start of the week, Slice them in half, remove the yolks entirely, and mash a small amount of the white itself with a little plain yogurt, a squeeze of lemon, and fresh dill or chives, then spoon it back into the white halves. You get the texture and flavor of a deviled egg with almost none of the phosphorus burden the yolk carries. Aim for 3 to 4 egg white halves as a single snack. That gives you roughly 10 to 15 grams of usable protein, which matters for preserving muscle as you get older, without asking your kidneys to clear much of anything extra. If you buy cartons of liquid egg whites instead of boiling your own, check the label carefully. Some brands add surprising amounts of sodium for shelf stability, so look for one under about 100 milligrams per serving. And if you're managing advanced stage 4 or approaching stage 5, your protein target becomes individualized. Work that number out with your own nephrologist or renal dietitian rather than guessing from a video. Snack 4 is the one I call the precision vegetable, because almost nothing gives you this much nutritional payoff for this little metabolic cost. Red bell pepper. A single medium red bell pepper delivers more vitamin C than double the standard recommended daily amount for an adult, a genuinely powerful water-soluble antioxidant that helps protect the delicate lining of the tiny blood vessels feeding your kidneys' filtering units. It also carries lycopene, the same antioxidant tomatoes are known for, but without the potassium load. A medium tomato can carry over 400 milligrams of potassium, while a red bell pepper sits closer to 250. When you're budgeting potassium daily, that difference is significant. Red bell peppers are also nearly phosphorus-free in any meaningful amount, which puts them in a small, useful category alongside the other snacks on this list. Genuine nutritional density without the mineral burden that so many otherwise healthy foods carry for someone in your position. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes with the dip. Store-bought hummus and most packaged dips are loaded with phosphate additives and sodium used purely as preservatives. Read the label and you'll often see triple-digit sodium numbers per 2 tablespoons. Instead, stir together a small container of plain yogurt with fresh dill, a pinch of garlic powder, and a squeeze of lemon juice. 2 minutes, no additives, and you protect the very benefit you're reaching for the pepper to get in the first place. One more note on preparation. Vitamin C breaks down with heat, so keep the pepper raw for this snack rather than roasting it. Slice 1 pepper into strips, dip, and you've got a snack with almost no downside. If you didn't know bell peppers beat tomatoes for a kidney-friendly diet, tap that like button right now. It genuinely helps this reach someone else who needs to hear it. The 5th snack is one that gets unfairly lumped in with fruits people are told to avoid when it shouldn't be. A crisp apple sliced with a light dusting of cinnamon. A medium apple carries a moderate but very manageable amount of potassium, nowhere near the level of a banana or an orange, and it comes wrapped in soluble fiber called pectin. Pectin forms a kind of gel as it moves through your digestive tract, and part of what it does is slow down and smooth out how quickly sugars and certain minerals get absorbed into your bloodstream. That slower, steadier release is exactly the kind of gentle demand your kidneys can handle far more easily than a sudden spike. There's a reason I specifically say cinnamon and not just an apple. Cinnamon has its own modest research behind it for supporting healthy blood sugar response. And since diabetes remains one of the 2 leading causes of kidney disease in this country, anything that gently supports steady blood sugar alongside a low mineral snack is doing double duty. It's a small addition, but small, stackable choices are exactly what today's video is about. Here's the detail nobody mentions. Leave the peel on. Most of the fiber and a meaningful share of the antioxidant compounds in an apple live in the skin, and peeling it strips away a large part of the benefit you're eating it for in the first place. Just wash it thoroughly. A light rinse under running water while gently rubbing the skin removes the vast majority of any surface residue. Slice 1 apple. Dust it with real cinnamon, not a sugary cinnamon sugar blend, and you have something that satisfies a sweet craving without asking much of your kidneys at all. Let me answer a few things I know are sitting in your mind right now, because I'd rather address them directly than have you quietly worry about them for the rest of the video. What if I'm not on a kidney diet yet, but my doctor mentioned my numbers are borderline? These 6 snacks are genuinely fine for you too. You don't need a formal diagnosis to benefit from lower sodium, lower processed, whole food snacking. Think of this less as a restriction and more as a head start. Do I need to eliminate potassium entirely to be safe? No, and please don't. Potassium is essential for your heart and your blood pressure. The goal with these snacks is choosing naturally lower potassium options as your regular go-tos, not stripping potassium out of your life completely. That's a different, much stricter conversation reserved for advanced stage disease under a specialist's direct guidance. My doctor already gave me a list of foods to avoid. Does this contradict that? It shouldn't. If anything on today's list conflicts with something your own nephrologist told you specifically about your labs, always defer to them. They know your numbers. I don't. Can I just eat bigger portions of these since they're safe? No food is unlimited just because it's low risk. Portions still matters. A cup of blueberries you eat instead of your afternoon cracker binge is the win. 3 cups eaten on top of everything else isn't the same thing. I want to pause here and tell you about Harold, because his story is exactly the midpoint of everything we're covering today. Harold is 74, lives just outside Traverse City, Michigan, and came to me managing stage 3B kidney disease, alongside long-standing arthritis in both knees. He'd been taking over-the-counter pain relievers most afternoons for years to get through his garden work. And separately, he'd fallen into exactly the all-or-nothing snacking pattern I described earlier. Nothing between meals most days, then a large, heavy dinner with his wife that left him uncomfortably full and more than once up half the night. He came into that appointment convinced his fatigue was simply what 74 feels like. When we sat down and mapped out his actual eating pattern against his lab trend, it clicked for him immediately. I always thought I was doing myself a favor by skipping snacks, Dr. Clark, he told me. Turns out I was just moving the whole problem to one giant meal instead. We addressed the pain medication separately with his own physician, and we rebuilt his day around 2 modest, well-timed snacks instead of one oversized dinner. Over several months, his creatinine stabilized, and this is the part he mentioned to me before his own lab numbers, his nighttime bathroom trips dropped from 3 a night to 1, and he told me he'd started sleeping through most nights for the first time in years. Diet didn't undo years of arthritis or reverse stage 3B disease. It didn't need to. It just stopped adding unnecessary weight to an already tilted scale. Let's make this concrete. A simple, sustainable layout for a full day looks something like this. Breakfast stays whatever your usual kidney-conscious meal already is. Mid-morning, around 10 o'clock, reach for the apple slices with cinnamon or a half cup of blueberries, something light, a little sweet, easy on the stomach before lunch. Lunch stays as your usual meal as well. Then comes the window Margaret and so many of my patients tell me is the hardest stretch of the day, the mid-afternoon slide, somewhere around 3 o'clock when the day feels long and the pantry starts calling. That's exactly where the egg white bites or the red pepper strips with yogurt dip do their best work. Enough substance and protein to actually satisfy you until dinner without the heavy metabolic ask of a full meal. And in the evening, if you want something small after dinner, the air-popped popcorn is the gentlest choice of the 6, since it's light enough to fit into that lower workload window we're about to talk about. Now let's go one layer deeper, because this is the part that connects directly back to those nighttime bathroom trips so many of you mentioned at the very start of this video. Your kidneys don't operate at the exact same pace around the clock. In a healthy person, blood pressure and kidney workload naturally dip at night. The body downshifts, filtration slows, and you sleep through it. Researchers call this the normal nocturnal dipping pattern. In chronic kidney disease, that nighttime dip often becomes shallower or disappears entirely, a pattern researchers refer to as non-dipping, and it's been associated with faster disease progression in the nephrology literature for years. Here's why that matters for something as simple as snack timing. A large, heavy meal or a poorly chosen snack late in the evening asks your kidneys for a burst of extra work at exactly the time of day they're biologically trying to wind down. That mismatch is one of the reasons a heavy late dinner, or Harold's old habit of one oversized evening meal, can show up the very same night as an extra trip to the bathroom. Think about it from the kidneys side of things. They've spent the whole day managing a fairly predictable rhythm of smaller demands, and then right as they're supposed to be easing off for the night, a large plate of food arrives asking for a full day's worth of filtering in a single sitting. I want to be careful here because the direct research connecting evening snack timing specifically, as opposed to meal timing generally, to nighttime urination is still an emerging area, and I don't want to overstate it as settled science. What is well established is the broader circadian pattern itself and the general principle that front-loading your larger nutritional asks earlier in the day and keeping evening snacking light and simple works with your kidney's natural rhythm instead of against it. For many patients, including both Margaret and Harold, that single adjustment in timing made a more noticeable difference to their nights than any single food choice did on its own. One honest note before we move on, because a food that's a smart choice at one stage isn't automatically the same choice at another, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I let that nuance slide by unmentioned. Everything I've walked through today is appropriate for most people in earlier stage kidney disease, stages 1 through 3. And honestly, most of it is simply sound nutrition for anyone paying attention to their kidneys before a diagnosis ever arrives. If you're managing stage 4 or approaching stage 5, your potassium and phosphorus ceilings tighten considerably, and even these low-load snacks may need smaller portions, less frequent servings, or different pairings than what I've described. A snack that's a smart daily habit at stage 2 might need to become an occasional treat at stage 5. That conversation belongs with your own nephrologist or a renal dietitian who knows your actual numbers, your actual medications, and your actual trend over time, not a general video, however carefully made, however many hours of research went into it. If your last lab report showed a creatinine above 1.2 or a GFR under 60, drop your stage or your number in the comments. It genuinely helps me know what to cover next. And if you haven't already, hitting subscribe and tapping that notification bell means you won't miss the next one. I want to walk you through 5 mistakes I watch good, careful people make constantly. Not to scare you, but because each one quietly undoes the work we just did together. Mistake 1. Grazing all day on healthy snacks. Remember the toll booth from earlier? Stacking 6 or 7 small, healthy snacks across the day can still add up to more cumulative filtering demand than 2 well-chosen ones spaced properly. More isn't automatically safer just because each individual item looks innocent on its own. It's the total volume moving through the booth that counts, not how virtuous each car looks. Mistake 2. Reaching for a salt substitute. This one is important, and I rarely see it mentioned anywhere else. Many salt substitutes replace sodium chloride with potassium chloride specifically to preserve the salty taste people miss when they cut back on sodium. For most people without kidney concerns, that's a genuinely clever swap. For someone with reduced kidney function, adding a concentrated dose of potassium chloride on top of everything else you eat can push blood potassium into a genuinely dangerous range, one that can affect your heart's rhythm. Check the ingredient label on any reduced sodium or no salt seasoning blend before you shake it onto anything, and when in doubt, ask your pharmacist or dietitian before bringing one home. Mistake 3. Trusting low-fat or sugar-free packaging. Manufacturers often pull fat or sugar out of a product and quietly add sodium or phosphate additives back in to preserve shelf life and restore the flavor that got lost. I've watched patients swap a full-fat cracker for a diet version and unknowingly double their sodium intake in the process. The front of the package is marketing. The ingredient list is the truth, every time. Mistake 4. Juicing or blending your fruit snacks. We touched on this with blueberries, but it applies across every fruit on this list and beyond. Whole fruit, chewed, releases its natural sugars and minerals slowly through fiber that's still physically intact. Juiced or blended, that same fruit delivers a fast, concentrated wave your kidneys have to manage all at once, with the fiber that would have slowed everything down left behind in the blender or the juicer's pulp basket. If you genuinely enjoy the ritual of a morning smoothie, the fix isn't giving it up entirely, it's choosing a small portion of whole, unblended fruit as your actual snack, and saving the blended version for something small and occasional rather than a daily habit. Mistake 5. Making these changes without telling your care team. I know it's tempting to quietly overhaul your snacking and surprise your doctor with a great lab report at your next appointment. Please don't do this alone. Certain blood pressure medications, ACE inhibitors and ARBs in particular, along with potassium-sparing diuretics, interact directly with how your body handles potassium, and a well-meaning dietary change made in isolation can shift that balance in ways worth watching closely. This isn't me covering myself legally. I've genuinely seen well-intentioned changes catch a physician off guard at a follow-up appointment simply because nobody mentioned them. Bring this list to your next appointment, written down if it helps. Let your nephrologist or dietitian help you fit it to your exact numbers, your exact medications, and your exact stage. Here's how everything we covered today comes together into one simple, repeatable daily habit. Pick one snack for mid-morning and one for mid-afternoon from the 6 we covered today. Keep portions consistent, roughly what I described for each, and keep your heaviest eating in the earlier half of the day rather than loading up close to bedtime. Rotate through the 6 across the week so you're not eating the exact same thing every single day. Variety matters for actually sticking with this over months and years, not just the first 2 weeks. If you want the simplest possible version of all of this in one sentence, 2 small, low-potassium snacks a day spaced apart, instead of either none at all or one oversized meal at night. You don't need to track grams or run calculations every afternoon to follow this. That's the entire point of choosing foods where the math is already done for you. Reach for one of these 6, keep your portion roughly where I described, and the workload stays small almost automatically. Let's bring it all together. We covered blueberries for their antioxidant punch without the potassium load of a banana. Air-popped popcorn for satisfying crunch and volume that costs your kidneys almost nothing. Egg white bites for clean, low-waste protein that protects your muscle. Red bell peppers for vitamin C and lycopene without the potassium of a tomato. And apple slices with the peel on, for fiber that slows everything down the way your kidneys need it slowed. 6 real options, chosen because each one gives you something and asks for very little in return. So what should you actually do this week? First, make your grocery list right now while it's fresh in your mind. Fresh blueberries, popcorn kernels, a carton of eggs, red bell peppers, plain yogurt, and a couple of apples. That's the entire list, and every item on it is available at any grocery store you already shop at. Second, pick just one snack to start with, not all 6. The person trying to change everything by Monday usually changes nothing by Friday. The easiest place to begin is usually the apple slices or the blueberries, since they require no preparation at all. Third, go check your pantry today for any seasoning blend labeled reduced sodium, no salt, or salt substitute, and read the ingredient list specifically for potassium chloride. Fourth, build your 2-snack rhythm into your day this week, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and keep your bigger meals earlier rather than later in the evening. And fifth, and this is the step that ties everything together, bring this list to your next appointment with your nephrologist or renal dietitian. Tell them your creatinine and GFR numbers out loud if you know them, and build your personal version of this plan together. Here's my challenge for you this week. Pick one of these 6 snacks, try it for 7 days in place of whatever you'd normally reach for, and come back and tell me in the comments what you noticed. If this video gave you back something you thought you'd lost, the simple pleasure of an afternoon snack, tap that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what we cover next. One last thing, and I say this in every video because it matters more than anything else I've told you today. If you're living with stage 4 or stage 5 kidney disease, or you've ever been told your potassium runs high, please don't overhaul your snacking based on this video alone. Bring it to your kidney specialist or renal dietitian first, especially if you take a diuretic or a blood pressure medication that affects potassium. Take care of your kidneys, and I'll see you in the next one.